Hi there, this is Kellyanne with Church Windows. We're going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar. We're looking at membership and donations, adding new families, and also assigning giver numbers and gives with family to new givers. Now what we're looking at today is taken from two documents that are attached to today's webinar, and I'll also really quickly show you where those are. If you go to our website, go ahead and pull that up. You can search our website by clicking on the magnifying glass in the upper right, and then just type in a keyword or phrase. And I just typed in how to set up. I wasn't sure if it would find the whole thing. Sometimes I find less is easier. But here we go, right at the very top, membership, how to set up a new family. That is also attached to the webinar in the toolbar, so you can click on that or bring it up at your location and print that out if you don't already have that. Again, you don't need the documents to follow along with what I'm showing you, but if you didn't see those and you wanted to print those out so you have those, you can. We also had assigning giver numbers. Let me just try assigning giver. And there we go, right at the top, membership and donations, assign giver numbers, and gives with family to new givers. So those are the two documents I'm going to be using. I'll go ahead and I'll show you those again at the end of the webinar in case I'm going too fast for you to catch all that and find it on your computer at your location. But I want to go ahead and get started with the webinar. If it's your first time using the GoToWebinar toolbar, on the side there's a little orange arrow. If you click that, it minimizes the toolbar down so it's not blocking what I'm showing you. Just click the orange arrow to open it back up again. And on that toolbar in the question section, that's where you can type a question. Josh is also in the room listening or here just to answer questions while I'm going over the material. But you might want to hold off with your question until the end because I might answer it as I'm working through the material. And just, out of respect for everyone here looking at setting up new families and manage giver numbers or adding giver numbers, try to keep your questions topical. If you have a question about another topic or your question really involves your data specifically, it might be best handled on a support call. So let me go ahead. Let's make sure, check at audio here and make sure I was actually unmuted myself and I'm not just talking to air. Let's go ahead and look at membership. I already have membership opened up. We can open membership just by clicking on membership right on the opening screen of Church Windows. First, we're going to look at how to set up a new family. Now, we do that by going to the People module or the People function within membership. You can access that by clicking on People in the upper left and then People just below that. Or in the middle of the screen are shortcuts to the most commonly used functions. I can just click right on People, and that takes me to the same place as upper left clicking on People. So that opens up our People records, and I'm going to maximize it. And we see the first record, and we are viewing our records alphabetically. There's a function in settings if you want to see them in entry order, but we're viewing ours alphabetically. We're going to go ahead and add a new family. Even if someone is just a single individual, you still have to create the left side or the family information. It's like you're building the house on the left, and then on the right side, you're putting each individual into the house. But notice my first record is one person, Ms. Nina Abenshine. She has a household side on the left, which I fill out first, and on the right, or the more larger section, is her individual record. Let's go ahead and create a brand new family. We're going to create a family called Casey and Dana Miller if I turn to the second page of the document. So I'm going to click Add Family in the upper left. The first thing that comes up is a box where I need to choose what category they're going to be in. I don't need to make a new code or description. If I want a new one, I can. But here, all I'm doing is selecting whether these individuals in this family is going to be in my member category or visitors. So I'm going to choose members and then select item. And now notice my cursor is in the upper left flashing in the mailing label. So I'm going to go ahead and type in however this family wants their mail addressed. It could be Mr. and Mrs. Dana Miller, or maybe it's Miss and Ms. Dana Miller, could be the Miller family, but they've told us specifically they want mail addressed to Casey and Dana Miller. So that's what we're going to put in for the mailing label. to add the address, I don't want to type here. If you wanted to search for an address, I could type there to search, but I want to add a new one for this family. So I need to click the little plus sign, and that brings up an address box where I can put in all the details of the family's main address and any bulk mail information if I do bulk mail. Also, if the family, maybe they go to Florida for the winter, I can put in alternate addresses with effective dates. And if the program sees those dates in effect for an alternate address, be it on a family or I can add it to individuals as well, then it's going to override and send mail to the alternate address. Let's go back to the family main. We're just going to put a main address. We'll do 123 anywhere. Whoops, my fingers aren't working. Anywhere street. Now notice as I hit tab, it went ahead and filled in the zip code, city, and state, which is something I can set as a default in my settings. It pulled in the same one as the church. If you want to change that, you can just click here and choose a different zip code, or maybe I'll put in my actual zip code. It's still Columbus, but it's a different area, Columbus. I could change any of these bits of information that it pre-filled for me based on my church zip, city, and state. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Well, actually, two more things here. If I want this to be an unlisted address, I can go ahead and click Unlisted, and that would exclude the address from directory reports. If you click the little arrow or the little question mark, it tells you what that means, what it will do. I want this to be listed, so I'm going to uncheck that. If you want this specific address to be used for donation statements, then you can check here, and even if it sees a family alternate address with dates in effect, for statements, it would override that it sees that alternate address with dates in effect as the current address, and it would still send the statement to this main family address. And that's only when I check this use for statements. All right, so once I have the bits of address in, I can click OK. Now, if we go ahead and move to the bottom of the third page, we don't have page numbers on it on the document, but it's the bottom of the third page. If you look, we can see here at the top left, the family tab says Casey and Dana Miller. And there's other tabs across here that you can click on and go ahead and add different bits of information that your church tracks. One thing that's usually tracked by a lot of churches, and it's how you determine what mail to send, is the mailing code. That's on this Family Info tab. We're going to go ahead and set them to all mailings. But I could fill in as much or as little as I want here. Back on the main tab, that's where we could also put a phone number. I didn't add one. We can add comments. We can add a family photo. And if this family, if maybe it's a family of divorce and there's children that spend their time between this family and another, I could link other children to this family. All right, let's go ahead, though, and turn to page 4 of the document, and let's go ahead and add an individual. I'm going to go back to my main tab on the left side. Now, I could do this two ways. I can either click Add Individual, and that will open up the right side for me to put an individual in, or I can click Save. Either one works. When I click Save, it asked me, would you like to add an individual to the Casey and Dana Miller family? And I'm going to say yes. Now, I'm doing the opposite of what it shows on page 4, but I wanted you to know that if you accidentally hit Save and you don't click Add Individual, it's going to ask you if you want to add an individual to that family. So either way is right. Either one works. Now, if I say yes, it opens up the right side, and I can go ahead and I'm going to put, let's see, we'll put in Casey first. So I'll put in Casey, or maybe her name is Cassandra, but she goes by Casey, and she prefers we use Casey as her name, so we can check use nickname, put her real name in, and then in her nickname we can put Casey and check use nickname. If we look below, we have all the different fields available that you can fill in, put in as much or as little as you want. Now, if I go ahead and click Save right now, it's going to tell me the following fields are required: directory report order. Now, that's one of the two fields you need to fill in to have a person be listed in a Church Windows directory. As long as we don't check Include on Directory, Casey is still not going to appear in the directory. But filling in this one bit of the two things you need for someone to be in a directory, the directory report order, that can help you down the line when you're doing reports and you're trying to narrow down to just one listing on a report per family. So again, do fill in that directory report order. It is required. But if I don't want Casey in the directory, as long as I don't check include on directory just above that, she will not be in the directory, or he. Well, she, Cassandra's a female name, usually. Now, what is directory report order? If we look at page 5, we have all the different directory report orders listed. Primary means they will be the first person in the listing. Secondary would be the second person showing in the listing. And then children will show, if they're listed as child, they will show after the primary and secondary in whatever order they were entered. Now, secondary, primary separately, I can show you all these here. That's good if you have a married couple, but maybe the woman kept her maiden name, and she wants to have a listing with her family listed with her, but under her maiden name. So we could code one of the persons as primary, and then the spouse as secondary, primary separately, and there would be a listing with everyone in the family under each of the letters of their last name. But with, say, one is Miller, they would be under the M's with the Miller individual first. Maybe the spouse is Jones. They would also have a listing under the J for Jones, where the Jones individual would be first in the listing. But all the rest of the family members would show as well. All right, so we will make Casey primary and click Save. And then we could go ahead and move on to adding a new family, or let's go ahead and add Dana real quick. So put Dana, and that's Dana's real name, and we'll put Dana as a secondary directory report order and click Save. And notice over to the left, as I keep adding individuals, it's building my family, and I can see the different names. The age, if I were to put that in with the full complete birth date, that would show based on in settings what ages I've chosen. And family relation, if I fill that in, it's over here on the individual record. Here we can just put adult for this one, and then you'll see adult fills in. So these age and family relation are based on you filling them in on the individual record. Now the system's pretty smart. It didn't used to do this, but if I try putting in, we'll go ahead and put Dana in again. If I try to put in a person who already exists in the database, it can see that. It tells me when I try to put Dana in a second time, there's a person with the name of Dana Miller already in the family, already in the following family. Do you still want to add this person? So I can see that I already have Dana. I mistakenly tried to add Dana a second time, so I'm going to tell it no. I don't want to add Dana a second time. All right. So let's go ahead. If we go ahead and look at the last page of the document, it just shows Casey Miller added to the family. I went a step beyond and added Dana as well. So it's pretty easy to add a family, even if it's just one person. Again, you still have to start with add family and fill in that left side of the screen, or as much as you want on that left side. That's where you put that, even if it's an individual, that's where their address goes, their phone number, the information for the family, even if it's a family of one. Then once we do that, we move to adding individual or individuals to the family. All right. Now, after you add a new family, I'm going to move on to the next document, assigning giver numbers and gives with family to new givers. And we're going to look first at adding a new family member number through membership. We'll also look at a little bit of donations, but let's look at how we do it in membership. We're first going to find the family. We're going to look for Jim and Kathleen Smith. So I'm going to use the person lookup up at the top to find there's Jim and Kathy Smith. So I'll click on one of them. And we want to give them a number, a giver number, or you may have renamed it envelope number. That's the same thing. That's one of the fields you can rename. So it will be called giver number or envelope number. And if we look, it's going to be somewhere in your individual fields. I say somewhere because you can change the order. And you may have moved giver number somewhere in a different order than you see on my screen. But here we see giver number, and it has the three little icons off to the right. So if you renamed it envelope number, it will say envelope number, but you'll still see the field and then those three little icons to the right. So we want to make sure we've clicked on the person. Erase the drawings and get my clicking tool back. We want to make sure we have the primary household member highlighted first. So we're going to click on the primary household member. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go through and check gives with family for each one of these individuals. And there's a reason we do this. It makes it a lot easier and more streamlined with the dates that you see. So we're going to first click on the number sign. We can see it in the image on the first page of the document. Click on the number sign, and that brings up Manage Numbers with just Jim's name showing. I'm going to go ahead and check Gives with Family. And then I'm going to close this screen. I'm not assigning a number to him yet. All right. Checking the Gives with Family on both spouses combines that giving number for the donation statement, and it will give us the same start date for each of these people by checking Gives with Family first. So that's why I'm doing this before assigning the number. So now I'm going to click on Kathy, or the second person in the household, and by giver number, I'm going to click that little number sign, and I'm going to check Gives with Family for Kathy as well. And then I'm going to close the Manage Number screen, and now I'm going to flip to page 2. Oops, I'm sorry. Page 2 at the top of that shows us choosing the second person. So if you look at instruction number 2 on the second page of our document, on either one of our spouse now, I'll go ahead and click back on Jim again. I'm going to click the number sign. Notice instead of seeing the individual name, I see James and Kathy Smith, and Gives with Family is gone because I've checked both of those to give as a family. And when a family is marked Gives with Family, or an individual is marked Gives with Family, then it will pull the name from the mailing label. The name it sees in the upper left, get my pen back, is the name the program will use when someone is marked Gives with Family. So it will not pull that individual name, but it will show the mailing label name. All right, so even if I click on Kathy now and click that little number sign, notice it still says James and Kathy Smith because I've marked each one of those individuals to give as a family. All right, so now that I've clicked Manage Numbers, I'm going to click Add New. And it brings up Assign Giver Number where I can go ahead and give them the number I'd like them to have. And notice my start date is 1/1 of 2019. If I want to change that, I can. But what would have happened if I had gone in and assigned the number to Jim and checked Gives with Family? That would have given him a start date of 1/1/2019. Then if I'd gone in and just checked Kathy Gives with Family and had already assigned the number to Jim, the start date for the family would have been today's date. So he would have had that number as an individual up until today, and then today it would have shown it as Gives with Family or a family number. So that's why I went through and checked Gives with Family first, and now I'm going back in and actually assigning that number. And now if we close out, we can see as of 1/1/2019, James and Kathy Smith have number 5555. All right. Let me see if I'm missing something because I'm not keeping my head in the document here. I tend to look a little and then go. Adding a giver number to an individual, it says at the bottom of that second page, is very similar. You do the exact same thing. You pull up you click the number sign and click Add New, but there's no reason to check Gives with Family. You'd see Gives with Family here, but since it's an individual giving alone or solely by themselves, you don't need to check that. All right, let's look at how we assign a number in donations. So I'm going to close the people files. I don't need to close out of membership. So if you work back and forth between donations and membership or accounting, you don't have to close out of one module to go to the other. Sometimes there's functions within that module that it might make you close before you can open something in the other program. But you can have all your different modules open. And if you just hover down here at the bottom, notice I can go back and forth from membership to donations and so on. I hear a lot of people on the phone saying, all right, let me close this and go open this. And you don't have to do that. So we're going to find Chuck and Molly Mitchell, and we're going to assign them a number through Manage Givers. So I'm going to click on Manage Givers. And I'm going to enter the name where it says Type to Search. I'm going to look for Molly There we see Molly Mitchell and Molly White. I want Molly Mitchell, so I'm going to click on her name. And what I'm going to do first is mark each of my spouses, each of the individuals gives with family, kind of like I did for each individual over in membership. So I found Molly and highlighted her. And now upper right, I'm going to click on this giver number tab. And I apologize, I've gone a little, about to go over our 20 minutes. If you need to leave, you can exit the room, but I shouldn't be too much longer here. I'm going to check gives with family for Molly. And now I'm going to click on her husband, Chuck, just above here. I can see him, or you can use the search if his name is farther up in the list. And I'm going to check gives with family for Chuck. And now I'm going to click this button that says go to family. I'm going to turn to the last page of my document. Notice that flipped me over to the Families and Groups tab. We were on individual givers. Now we're on Families and Groups. And it shows Mr. and Mrs. Charles Mitchell. And I can click right here where it says current giver number, type in the number I would like them to have. Just click off of that, and now we can see Mr. and Mrs. Charles Mitchell have that number. If I go back to individual givers and take a look, we can see Chuck and Molly both show with the individual, or the individual number 4444, and they're giving with the family. So that is why we see it for both of them. All right, so that is all I wanted to show you on those two documents, setting up a new family and assigning giver number and gives with family to new givers.